You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where after a good month of, I would say a roller coaster, but it's not been a roller coaster, has it? It's been like one of those rides where it goes up a bit, and that was the arrival of England in Australia, and then went down really steeply and really quickly, and we're now at the end. We finished the ride. It was quicker than we expected. We paid money for a full length ride. We only got about 70% of it, but so that's just how it goes sometimes. Australia, of course, today wrapped up a 4-0 win courtesy of England completely imploding. And to discuss today's antics, I'm joined by, first of all, Ross Legg. How are you, Ross?
It's one of those sad things when yesterday I was saying that Australia were going to pound us, and it was going to be an absolute brutality of a way of losing, and unfortunately that came true. So I'm looking forward to sitting across an Australian who's going to absolutely love every second of this.
It wasn't the hardest prediction you've ever made, Ross, to be honest. And yes, the aforementioned Australian Shane Dietz is back to rub salt into our wounds. How are you, Shane?
Very good, and yes, I've got the sea salt there, ready to go. So it's quite a big one because I think there's a few wounds. So
we're going to need a big tub.
Yeah, I call for a bit extra salt, I think. But yeah, go to your roller coaster analogy. I think as it started coming down, I think it just completely went off the rails, and that was the Ashes done and dusted, and probably finished the way it started in a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, it was a pretty chastening day for all England fans, but you know, for every sad England fan, there'll be a happy Aussie. So I don't know whether that makes you feel better or worse, Ross, but that's the yin and yang of it. So before we get into the good stuff, do you want to remind the
Remind the messages of the listeners.
Messages of the listeners, yes.
Yeah, exactly, Max. You're watching this on YouTube, then like this video. There's already kind of 60, 70 people watching this, which is great, and no doubt that will swell over the next kind of 10, 15 minutes. You should also follow us at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And if you are feeling generous, why don't you just sign up to the Patreon? Jack and I and Max have revamped our Patreon offer. Go on to Patreon / the Cricket Podcast, and you can see what has got to offer on there, especially with England versus West Indies just around the corner. And the ODI stuff, we're good at white ball cricket, we're shit at red ball cricket, so hopefully there'll be some good cricket there. And then the IPL just after that. And yeah, I think that's all we've got time to mention really in this side, because I think it's great. We've got so much to talk about because today was ridiculous.
It was, and we will probably try and focus mostly on today. I think we'll do a kind of a series roundup show a little later on after we've had a little time to calm down and collect our thoughts. But today has got more than enough content to keep us going. So we'll get on with that. And England started the day with a sniff, didn't they? After getting a few late wickets on the evening of the second. I still can't. The evening of the second day. Australia were 3 down, and Scott Boland was at the crease in the morning, so England would have had hopes of a quick early wicket. And Mark Wood came in with a fearsome spell of bowling really fast at people's ribs, and it paid dividends as England had Australia quickly down, reduced to 60 odd for 6, with hopes of actually setting a chaseable target. It was a bit of a comeback from Alex Carey, who scored 49, not without a couple of reprieves by the barest of all margins, as some Kiwis might say. But as it was, he did eventually fall, and Broad and Wood managed to mop up the rest, leaving England with a tricky chase, let's be honest, of 271. No one was really expecting that England might be able to chase that much, but there was still a sniff, and not having to score 300 to successfully chase those runs was probably brought it slightly more into the realms of realism rather than complete fantasy. But well, we know what happened, and there was even more hope, wasn't there? Was England somehow, I mean, I don't know how this happened, somehow managed to make it to about 63 for no wicket, despite Burns actually being out, but Australia didn't review it, so, got away with it. A few very close calls, a couple of almost nicks and not nicks. But, they just about managed to dig in and almost get to tea without losing a wicket. Almost. But Burns finally fell by leaving the ball onto his own stumps. But, at that stage, 208 to win with 9 wickets in hand on a third-day pitch. You're thinking England's they've got a shout. I think WinViz had it up at about 50-50.
Which shows you how stupid WinViz is, and we can talk about that in a minute.
True, yeah. But the bookies had England as favourites at one point, like early in that chase. This is how momentous this was in terms of the series, like in how much of a chance England actually had. And then
I actually thought I had you as favourites too at none for 60, to be honest.
Well, there you go. See, people
didn't
had hope.
take into,
there was hope.
You didn't take in the England factor.
No.
Shane,
Yeah.
I'm guessing you've played at Hobart?
Yeah, plenty of times, and I've never seen it that green, but yeah, from about 2002, they seemed to make it a bit green on day one because they weren't getting any results. It was just so flat, it doesn't really deteriorate. And it was just draw after draw after draw. So then they started making big green day one, always bowl first and have a run chase on day 4. And it's usually the best way of playing. So it was once England won the toss, it was probably advantage England. So it was very green. So, unbelievable. I've never seen it that green, but it's usually, a bit of a bowl first wicket, and it usually gets flatter. Day 4, beautiful day for batting. There's a bit more grass than probably what it has been when I played there, but I remember once Ponting got 100 in each innings against us, and it's usually beautiful batting paradise down there. But unfortunately for England, and I think once the orange or coloured ball, pink ball, the orange that I played in the day-night game, once your pink ball got a bit old, it seemed to be doing less, but it seemed to just still do a bit the whole time tonight, and England just kept nicking or missing them or hitting them onto their stumps.
Yeah, I mean,
you hitting them on the stumps, wasn't there? Yeah.
As you're saying, 63 for none. England in with a shout, and then after the final session, it all went very, very wrong, very, very quickly, and England were bowled out in an hour and a half. It's all it took for England to collapse. In fairness, at the end, clearly what happened once Wood went into bat was the bowlers had a little natter and be like, oh, fuck this, we've had enough. If the batsmen aren't going to do their jobs, we might as well make sure this ends now and we can have a day off tomorrow, because no one wanted to come back and.
Are you saying the bowlers did a bit of a dirty protest? Is that what you're suggesting?
I mean, it looked like it, didn't it? I mean, for God's sake, Mark Wood middled the ball onto his leg stump, like.
Yeah.
Ollie Robinson was trying to practice being the square leg umpire.
Ollie Robinson just ran away, and Stuart Broad also just ran away. And you can't really blame them. They had a bit of a swing. It was fun for about 5 minutes, and it was all over.
Yeah.
But
I think you're right there, because most teams have like the batters versus the bowlers, and every time there's a team meeting, there's always a bit of angst against each other. It's your fault. No, it's your fault. Your batters get runs, and there's nothing worse when a tail ender makes a 50 and gives it to the batters. That's how you bat, which happened a fair bit over the time. But I think the batters definitely didn't do their job once again. That's probably been the story of the series. And I think you're right. The bowlers just said enough and said we're having a swing
and you
get
can't
this over and done with.
You can't
go out for a beer. Yeah, you can't blame them all.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, we've spent a lot of the time, and a lot of the time when you've been joining us, Shane, talking about how bad England are at batting. So let's put that to one side for a little bit. Let's save that. Why don't we start at the start of the day and talk about some good things from England's point of view and something different to England batting badly, and Mark Wood starting the day so well. And I think would you say it's fair that he finally got some of the rewards that he'd not been getting earlier in this series? Because he's bowled well, hasn't he? Not been particularly lucky, but 6 for 37 today. Finally getting a reward for his hard work.
Yeah, I think he's been the player of the tour for you guys. And I think the Australian crowds have really warmed to him and just enjoy the way he just has a crack and gives it 100% every time he gets the ball. He just runs in and gives it his best and plays with a smile on his face and tries to entertain. And I think one of the commentators also mentioned it in one of the tests that it's a bit like when Goffey played back in the old days. The crowd, the Aussies loved Goffey when he played in Australia, even though he was going through us a few times. It was just the way he played with a smile on his face and had a real crack and stuck it up us a bit. And we were enjoy that and enjoyed his the way he played the game through this series. And he definitely deserved a big haul and good on him. And he's a great bowler, and you got to keep him fit, keep him on the paddock, put him and Archer together. That's a pretty formidable attack. So you just got to keep them both fit is the probably test for the management now.
Well, one step at a time. We've got to get Archer fit in the first place.
Yeah. I'd still be surprised if Archer plays Test cricket again, which is probably a little bit too dour for this podcast. But I think when it comes to that, you saw the confidence in Mark Wood as well. Like last night, the bouncer to get out Usman Khawaja was like a snorter.
That was unplayable almost.
Like it was one of the best bouncers I've seen in the cricket that I've watched. And you're sitting there going, if this guy can be consistent and he can be fit, as you're saying there, Shane, and sometimes it takes a few games, right? Actually, being in and out of the squad because apparently you're trying to manage his workload, actually, that could have a detrimental effect, right? Some players just like to have that bit where they have a run. And it's not like England are playing all 5 days of test matches because they're batting so bad.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think there's one of my notes I was making about the series before is that they probably overthought it all and they've got too much planning. Mm-hmm. And you've got to rest here, you've got to rest there. That just has not worked. It never does work. So I think you're right. You just got to stick him in there and bowl him in the short spells. That will look after him. Yeah. But I think bowlers like to bowl a lot, and that usually gives them their bowling fitness and bowling strength.
Well, he's held up well, hasn't he, this series? He's played through on the bounce in quick succession. It's been absolutely fine.
Yeah, he's got better as the time went on. So
and sometimes it's not going to work out, right? When you are a fast bowler, sometimes you get it a little bit wrong and you'll go around the park. Look, this happened to Mitchell Johnson. I mean, we won't need to talk about Sean Tate at this point in time, but you know what I mean? And there's those bowlers where sometimes when it just goes slightly wrong, and when you've got some high-class batsmen that you're bowling against, they're just like, you know what, I'll just use the pace on this. And it'll just fly away to the fence. And I thought Mark Wood today, and Broad, to be fair today, bowled really well in a partnership. And they were really unfortunate. Like that LBW that is, what, a millimetre or two that is sitting on the wrong side of the outside of the stumps.
Tough,
unbelievable. But you're right when you said partnership. And that's when if Wood is going around the park, the other bowlers are really got to step up and keep it tight to allow Wood to come in and try to take wickets and be attacking. And it's going to go wrong some days, that's for sure. But that's a good game plan. But the partnership is the key. And every great fast bowler or spinner has always had someone at the other end to bowl with and work together as a partnership. And I think Broad, I wanted him in the whole time, but I'd hate to play against him. He's so annoying. And I think I said it before. He's like the pantomime villain in Australia, and it just should lift the team. And that's when they lacked energy before. And I think, I love when he's playing, though. I just would hate to play against him.
Yeah, it's that bit like David Warner hates him far more than you hate him. Like he dismissed him twice in this game, didn't he? No, Ollie Robinson got him in the second innings. But again, it was he did nothing. He did nothing, unfortunately. So
he gets lefties out for fun, and we've got so many lefties. So it was had to play in that first game in Brisbane.
Again, it's back to that.
Let's not go back there.
Yeah, it's back to the same thing. Got the selection wrong in the first place. Got it wrong. Well, we actually probably got it right in the, forced or otherwise, with what was available. Possibly got it right in this one. With the all-seam attack. Nathan Lyon, of course, didn't bowl a single ball in the test match.
Do you reckon that's the biggest TFC you're going to get? Like, actually, and he doesn't care, right?
I'm really surprised they didn't bring him on at the end just to get the final wicket.
Keep him in the game.
Yeah.
He'll be sitting there, king of the team song, just be like, I did so much this test match.
He took a good catch off Ben Stokes, so I suppose he's got that to look for. But I mean, England's bowlers, if you exclude Chris Woakes, who struggled clearly, and Jack Leach, who also struggled, they performed as well as they. Well, I'm pretty sure it'll be as well as England's bowlers performed in Australia for a long time. Even when England did actually manage to win, I think I was just looking at like the series averages, and you got like Broad averaged 26, Wood also averaged 26. Ollie Robinson averaged 25, and Anderson averaged 23. I mean, they're good numbers. They
Good,
pale
yeah.
in comparison to the Australian numbers, but there's probably other reasons for that. But
it's probably the most bowler-friendly conditions I've seen in Ashes or Test matches in Australia. Like Melbourne, never seen it like that before. This was obviously green. Adelaide had a bit of grass on it. Pretty amazing. Even SCG wasn't as normal as it usually is as well. So I don't know if it was a ploy by Australia.
I was going to say, why do you think that is?
Really bizarre. I don't understand. They just must have thought our bowlers are so good, their batters are so poor. If we could just get a bit of grass on the wicket, we'll go through them.
Well, they're not wrong.
If that was the plan, it's gone amazingly well, and well done to the curators, I guess.
And it's not like you can look back on this, right, and say, but England have nothing to blame but themselves, right? It's not like they've got really unlucky with the toss, or they got really unlucky with the weather, all that kind of stuff. Like, we were 1 wicket away, and as I said this yesterday, we were 1 wicket away from losing the last Test match that we ended up drawing. And that was only because they could only bowl spin in the last kind of couple of overs because of light.
Yeah. And it rained as well.
And it rained. Like, England ended up having that luck, and you look at some of the batting, like Rory Burns, like got a bit of luck today with when they didn't appeal or didn't review, whatever it was. But actually, if you look across that thing, England, the amount of times we've played on, does that actually represent kind of bad luck, or is it actually bad technique and bad temperament? And actually, it's probably a mixture of both.
I mean, obviously, the ball can go anywhere, can't it? If you get an inside edge on it, but it's the getting into that position in the first place. I think it's a mental thing, isn't it? Surely it's the not having conviction in your shots, whether you're leaving the ball and just
100%. I just think it's just the plans. At least they were trying to do something today, and I liked Crawley batting out of his crease and negating some of the seam movement. Looked good. I think to Green though, it's probably not a great option because he gets the extra bounce. He's going to be more of a nicking bowler, so you probably can bat a bit more on middle stump and back in your crease against Green, because I think it's going to be hard for him to hit the stumps because he's so tall and a lot of balls are going over the stumps with the reviews. So I would say to a tall bowler like him, come at my stumps, because he has to really pitch it up, and that's when you can get some drives away. A full Boland, I think, batting off stump and a bit outside, or probably not quite off stump, but definitely outside your crease to negate some of that seam. It was a great option. He looked really good against all of them. So at least I'm trying something. But like Pope and those other guys, they're just rabbit in the headlights at the moment. They're not sure what they're doing. And if you've got a confused brain with your game plan, you got absolutely no chance at that level. But Crawley again looks a good player, and that's a great find for you guys. He looks like he could play and make some big runs at the top of the order, fast, and set the tone for the people behind him to make it a bit easier for the middle order to come in and hold the ball in other Test matches and make some runs.
And that's the thing with Crawley.
Sorry.
Yeah, but that's the thing with Crawley though. Like, Crawley had a torrid time last year. Like, couldn't hit the ball off the square, and yet the confidence here, like, he looks like he wasn't. I don't know, maybe not. It's that sometimes when you're looking for something and you're trying too hard, it'll always evade you. And here, actually, it looked like he was back to playing his own game, whatever that own game is. But I tell you what, when there is, I think David Gower summed it up saying that if there is a bad ball to be put away, like, Crawley gives it the beans. Like, there is a full face of the bat. He times it really well, and he looks good doing it. But then there's the other part around being able to build that long-term innings. Yes, he has that 267 against Pakistan, but there are, as you say, Shane, there are shoots of potential there that people weren't seeing for a whole 12 months. Yeah. So it's encouraging. That's probably an encouraging sign.
Yeah, well, I think we said the same ourselves, didn't we? We were like, what's Crawley? We spent a long time saying, what's Crawley doing in this? He's averaged 10 for the year. He averages under 35 in Division 2 in the County Championship. And we saw with that 77 last week, the reason that people sort of are drawn to picking him. And I think it's a bit of a honeypot, isn't it, when you see those glorious cover drives being smoked off after perhaps slightly overpitched deliveries. But I think it's just for him, it's got to be about when to play those shots, isn't it? And I think when he was struggling, he was trying to play that shot to almost every ball outside off stump and getting and nicking off. And if he reins that in, then maybe he can be a guy for England. He's certainly got more stock than anyone else at the moment at the top of the order. So he's
I think most players will come on the scene and a lot of players, they do well straight away, and then they always have a little tough period after that, which is it's usually a good sign because it makes you really rethink your game, work out your plans, have some failures because you learn more from failures than you do when you're just churning out runs all the time. Sometimes these little mishaps are what you need to really work on your game and understand your technique a bit more. And he's a young player, which is always the thing when you're a young player. But now he looks organised. It looks like he can attack to the bowlers and put them under pressure. And that's what you need. He needs a good opening partner with him so they can work together. I don't think Burns is that guy. I just can't watch him back. It just drives me insane.
What about the hair? What do you make of his...
well, I'm hearing this from everyone.
Yeah, I was going to say...
I'm the wrong person to ask, mate. I'd love to have that hair. What are you talking about? That makes me hate him even more now.
I'm just kind of picturing you now, Shane, where you've got your batting lid and you've glued some hair extensions to the bottom of the thing, just so you're just sitting there looking like that. Let's
looked a bit untidy, didn't it?
It did. But that opening partnership was promising today. But again, Hamid couldn't be sent back out again in this Test match. He was kind of a bit rabbit in the headlights, wasn't he? Again, there is some potential there, but actually on this tour, he's just been just not the right player to play in these games. But what I found when we were looking at that opening partnership was, hang on a minute, like, do we actually have a chance here? Or is this just setting up for another day of spectacular failure? And I think even the most ardent England cricket fan wouldn't have thought we'd lose all 10 wickets for 56 runs in an hour and a half. Like, that capitulation is a disgrace. Let's be honest.
There's not really much other word for it, is there?
No, England's highest ebb, as we said, was drawing a match last week because of the rain and all kinds of different bits of luck. We have not really got off level 1 on the 0 to 10 ebb flow, of 10 being where Australia are, right, smashing us to bits, and we have not got out the gates. And it was just, I'm not sure what it is, right? We can talk about England's failures in a minute, but it was almost like Australia knew we were there for the taking. And if there's one thing I could attribute how this has gone for Australia, is their persistence. And I think, Shane, when you were last on, we were talking about Pat Cummins being captain. And you mentioned today already that the bowling unit for this Australian side is really strong. I mean, Hazelwood's not even playing, right? And Hazelwood is an elite level Test player. And he's won the IPL this year, so he's not a bad, and the World Cup, so he's not a bad white ball bowler either. But they haven't even got their best quartet of seamers out, and yet they've got the ball on the string. Scott Boland has come into this side and not missed. He's not bowled one bad delivery, it seems, in the whole time he's played Test cricket.
Yeah.
And Cameron Green has grown into this Test series, and he's been that again. If there's no respite, and that persistence of every single one of their bowlers, well, I think is probably the difference between kind of what England could even try to hope for, because then they actually get a rest. Because Khawaja comes in, hits double centuries. Travis Head comes in, hits the most runs in the series after being questionable if he's going to be in the place. Steve Smith, Marnus Labuschagne, they don't really have an amazing series, but they have it's better than every other England batsman.
Well, Steve Smith had a pretty poor series by all accounts. You wouldn't have thought that would.
Yeah, well, that's one of my the notes here is like the fringe guys, or not the superstars. They're the ones that stood up for Australia.
Mm.
You know, Green, Travis Head, Boland, Khawaja, even Richardson, when he got that one game, took 5 for. Like, they're the guys that have stepped up. Yeah, that usually happens. Like, the top players in the world usually cancel each other out. You know, Smith make 100, Root makes 100. They sort of cancel each other out. It's those other guys who can win the battle between, you know, the middle of the road players and the Australian ones. Like Trav got player of the series. Boland destroyed it. Green averaged 30 with the bat and 15 with the ball. So, you know, that's a big difference of the teams. That was amazing. And they kept the same team together. England obviously had to change a lot. I think he missed Bairstow, just makes 100 and runs in the second innings. It was a shame he was injured. But, yeah, you missed him a bit. Would have given you a bit more batting depth in the middle.
It was. And so let's come on to talking about the batting then, because England obviously drafted in Ollie Pope, who has been a disaster on this tour. England's Dawid Malan, since he hit those back-to-back 80s, I don't know. He's just lost it. I don't know. He's just lost his rhythm a little bit. and he got sconed today by a pretty nasty bouncer, and he was kind of, yeah, I'm fine. But then his feet were in concrete, right? He just wanted to get out.
Yeah. He's looked like he's gone within his shell a bit because he's a great, plays the white ball game pretty well. So it looked like he wanted to attack a little bit more in Brisbane, but yeah, I think you're right. He's just not moving his feet. He's stuck there, which is a shame. He's the big difference. You lose an open, then you lose your number 3 straight away, and then it seems to steamroll. And that was probably what they needed to do. If they lost one today, they needed to start a partnership again. And they obviously didn't. Root was a bit unlucky.
Just a bit.
just a bit. But you're right. Yeah, those players need to step up. They just couldn't be consistent. Now you're looking. Who's your best 11 next game? You wouldn't have a clue, would you? Really?
Well, I think David Milan, like we've seen that wicket. We've seen that before, haven't we? I think and obviously that bouncer from Cameron Green was fierce. It followed him. It was like a tracer bullet. It was a really good ball. But Australia, I think, probably got in his head in the last couple of matches or the last couple of innings with that ploy of catching him out down the leg side, which was probably eating away at him a bit, and then actually didn't use that at all today. Just kept bowling around the wicket and trying to sort of angle it into him, and we've seen him before trying to cut things that are too close to him, and it's that sort of fourth stump line where he can sometimes get a bit caught up, and I think
coming around the wicket.
Yeah, it was. I mean,
coming
it was
around
good.
the wicket changed things a lot for him.
And I think from that point of view, you have to say it was a bad shot that he got out to. Obviously, he didn't move his feet, but Cameron Green bowled really well in that sort of opening period after the was it dinner? Is it the dinner break? In the day-night test.
But Green's doing that. He's just coming on and. You get through the new ball, and bowling Green are just relentless at you. So it's pretty formidable attack at the moment.
Not bad for a batting all-rounder.
Well, yeah. Well, I was saying he made his debut for WA when he was 17 as a bowler and took 6 run on debut. So I think his batting is just starting to show. But I think Michael Vaughan was saying, he's going to dominate Ashes series in the future.
Yeah,
just a bit like he's our Freddie Flintoff, so we've got to get behind him. Freddie was a legend for you guys. What a player!
Yeah, Cameron Green looks tasty. It's got to be said.
Very good.
Now let's talk about England's all-rounder then, because I just want to say thank you to Nehal and Ardesh in the chat who sent over some super chats, so thank you very much for that. But Ardesh asks, kind of, why has the media been going easy on Ben Stokes, who's not really had the best of series?
Third top run scorer for England.
Yeah, I'm not sure there is something to. If there's going to be someone to have a go at in this series, I don't think it's Ben Stokes.
Yeah, that's the thing. There are people queuing up ahead of Ben Stokes for a grilling. I think that's the thing. I think he can probably hide behind some other members of the squad in terms of getting it in the neck for his performances. And he's come back from no cricket. He clearly hurt himself in the first game, didn't he? Bowling all those short balls and tried to soldier through for the next few games, and has ultimately broken down. And we played a 70% fit at best, Ben Stokes. As a batsman, 70% fit as a batsman. That is, like, obviously he can't bowl, so he's less than 50% fit because he can't do half of what he's in the team to do. So, I
guess when you're down, the point is that you got to you need your big guys to step up and take responsibility, and that's probably where the criticism could be a little bit for Stokes.
I mean, he's shot today.
He's your man. Yeah, he's the one that's got to puff the chest out and take them on a bit. And it's down but he's behind the 8 ball. He needs he defended a lot more than I've seen. Then he is attacking. He was never sort of in between playing proper cricket. He wasn't quite sure how his game plan, I think. Was either saving games or trying to survive, or then overly attacking in the first test from memory. So I think he's not sure where he's at the moment.
It was his contribution, right? It was his contribution in the draw that he kind of did. He got back-to-back 50s in that, and faced a hell of a lot of deliveries in there. And as Max said, he is carrying an injury. And I think England don't work without Ben Stokes in the side anyway. I think anyway, and I think playing a 70% fit Ben Stokes is unfortunately better than playing 100% fit Ollie Pope. It's better than playing 100% Dan Lawrence by the looks of it. Like there's not just too many people who are lining up to take that fifth batting spot. Is that right, Shane? Do you feel that's fair, or actually?
Yeah. Well, if he's going to bowl a fair bit, probably number 6 is a better spot for him. So he can take a bit of pressure. But yeah, he's got to go up a little bit higher. He's got to take a bit more responsibility because no one else is contributing, and you can't replace him with anyone else. So the balance of the team is not quite right. Is he bowling? Is he fit? So he's always had little injuries or hasn't bowled a lot. But yeah, they were messing around with that balance a lot. And I think if he's fit and doing well, and I don't know why they made him bowl bouncers and be that sort of guy, especially after someone who hasn't played a lot of cricket or bowled a lot. And he swings it. He's got great shape when he bowls it. So that was another bizarre thing that happened from your.
I know. But
I really add it to the list.
I really liked your point, Shane, around him being the person who has to stand up, put his chest out, and be the one to be counted. Like, there's only so many times you can do that. You can't do that every game, can you? Like, you just can't take that. People now, because they've watched Headingley, and Headingley's kind of still, only 3 years ago, right? People still look at that as kind of almost like a normal behaviour. That is a once in a lifetime thing that you're going to see. Like, from your team, I know that Pereira did it for Sri Lanka. I think it was Pereira anyway. And you just don't see those very often. And now every single time Ben Stokes is at the crease, he's just like, well, there is the possibility he's going to do it again. And I think it's just unfair.
Yeah, that was once in a lifetime. Well, both of them as well at Headingley all those years ago. So, yeah, you can't expect those sort of miracles all the time. But he's the one, I guess, that can probably take the bowlers on. He took the line on a few times. And that's what people were waiting for, like a counter punch from England somehow against the bowlers. But the bowlers are so good, they've been relentless and not giving that opportunity. So probably got to give the Australian bowlers some credit there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And even for all the collapsing that England did today, part of that was Australia bowling really tight and keeping on top of it. England couldn't score the runs. It got them jittery, and that's sort of part of what happened. Scott Boland went for about a fifth of his runs in one over because he conceded 5. He was, he'd gone for about 18 or 14 overs or something ridiculous. And you have to credit them, but we should probably try and decide which of England's dismissals was the worst. I reckon we'll probably all agree on one being bowled behind your legs,
Joe Root
stump.
Ollie Pope, since we've already started this podcast, has flattered to deceive. I think his England career has completely stalled. In fact, gone backwards really. And he looked like a walking wicket when Nathan Lyon was bowling to him earlier on in the series. Didn't really have a plan. Was very jittery. I think Shane, you were on that thing saying that he was just looking to score. He was looking to be too busy at the crease. And here he's batting so far outside off stump. Like, his head is over, his weight is completely wrong. And I'm not sitting here as a complete expert in batting technique. If you see me bat, you're just like, this guy, how the fuck does this guy hit any runs? But there is a bit where you're just like, you're watching a professional cricketer who is supposed to be a prodigal, can't say the word. He's supposed to be a batting prodigy, is what I'm going to go for. I'm going to completely stop trying to say that.
Prodigal talent.
That's the one. And
really good.
that dismissal, Max, you're a big Surrey fan. That was one of the most embarrassing wickets. Like, and Marnus Labuschagne was on his arse in the other innings, and that was worse.
It would have been better if he were on his arse. He could have made the excuse that he slipped. But it was insane. But again, it was. I think it was that same. Is that the same symptoms as what we were seeing with him against Nathan Lyon? Is that, okay, I'm going to be trying to be busy, and that's how I'm going to get on top of it. And it's like he was trying to do things today, but not knowing actually, why. It was like, oh, okay, I'm going to try to stop nicking off. I'm going to try and cover this area outside off stump, so I know where my off stump is. I mean, the point of that is that you then know how you can leave the ball easily rather than play it, push it everything outside of stump, which he does.
Right. And you can't do that. But I listened to a thing on YouTube. I think it was Hussein, Rob Key, talking about how county players are now batting on off stump a lot more to negate the seam movement in the county pitches as good batting pitches as they probably were in the past. And there was a big debate about batting on off stump, and you can see. I know the theory, and you said it right. They're trying to be able to leave the ball outside off stump, make them bowl straight, and clip you off your legs. And that worked well for Crawley early. And the Aussies were trying to bowl straight at the stumps, and they're going through the leg side a lot. But then they realised, all right, let's just bowl 4th and 5th stump because they're going to come at you sooner or later, and then work perfectly. So, yeah, bat on off stump for a bit. But if they're staying outside off stump, change it back. Come back on middle and make them come towards you a bit more. Because if you put it out there and let it go, they're going to come and bowl straighter. They have to. So yeah, but he just wants to nick everything and just to even defend the points. Like that's the first thing you learn at first class cricket. Don't defend the point. So they should be doing that in the Test match arena. So that's really, it looks like he really wants it, and I think he could be a good player one day. He's made lots of runs, so he's got a hunger for big runs.
Even if he is batting 5 or 6 for Surrey and getting piles of runs at the Oval, he's still scoring those runs, and he's still averaging, over 60 in first class cricket, and he's still, away from the Oval, he still averages, I think, 45. So it's not like, obviously, his stats are padded slightly from the Oval, where he averages like 90 or something ridiculous, but he still scores the runs away from the Oval, so he's still got the talent. We know he can bat. It's just for some reason, the transferring to the Test arena has absolutely not worked, and he just
it's the level of difficulty.
Needs someone. Yeah, but he's
played FIFA. Like when he's playing for Surrey, he's playing the county championship. Like he's a great FIFA player. He's playing on he's playing on professional, and he's just like, man, I'm smashing the computer. I know exactly what I'm doing here. Like I know my little tricky goals.
Let's see what world class is like.
Yeah. Let's see what world class is like. And unfortunately, the computer is battering him every single time because anything he tries is just like, oh, actually, I just can't do this, right? And what I think, Shane, I think you're completely right. It's credit again to the Australians where they're set up and their tactics. Like for each of these batsmen, they've gone, oh, actually, right, that worked in this game. And they're clearly doing something behind the scenes with Langer and co to kind of say, right, this is what needs to work. This is how we're going to try and get this guy out. And I thought it was a masterclass in terms of their selection. I read out an email we got from a PE teacher in Brisbane yesterday who just talked about the Aussie selectors a person of the series, right?
Yeah, that's a good shout. Yeah, and well, talk about the analysis of the opposition. Dean Hills is the analysis guy for the Aussies, who was this great player. He used to get 1,000 shield runs every year for Tassie. He's been doing it for a long time. He's got a great cricket brain, so he's probably one behind the scenes. He's done a lot of work and probably needs a bit of credit. But you could just see Boland was bowling straight, and they had a mid-wicket. They had 4 on the leg side. And then the captain come over and they switched one over and they just went to that channel outside off stump, and then they just stayed there for the rest of the game today. But they worked it out pretty quick and got on top. But probably the issue for these guys, the level of county cricket to Test match cricket is obviously just too high. And you see the Aussies, you got Boland, Richardson, Nessa, all those guys play Shield cricket all the time. So that's the level of Shield cricket that the Australians have to play in, where if you look at county cricket, this is the debate going on for years, too many counties, playing 100, playing T20, too much cricket, blah, blah, blah. Happens every year, and then you get beaten in the Ashes, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, the inquiry is definitely going to start, but I think, before we even touch upon that, you talk about people like Pope wanting bat on ball and wanting to feel that kind of thing. Like, where does that? Is that like a nervousness that is in somebody's game, or is it just something? What are they doing where they can't just be like, do you know what? I'm going to trust myself to leave this, because leaving on Australia is a massive part of the game, right? Like you don't score big runs without being able to leave the ball.
Yeah, because the bounce is a bit higher, so nicking is usually a massive mode of dismissal. So you've got to leave that, so you bring the bowlers a little bit fuller and straighter, where then you can punch them down the ground. But I think it also, they're trying to hit cover drives or play outside off stump, and Root does it as well. But I think it's more of a technique thing. Their head is getting across the body and it feels like it's on off stump. So they just don't know whether off stump is enough. they've got to get themselves organised, that technique. They're just falling over so much. Even Root does it as well sometimes, and he wants to play outside off stump, and that's where you got to be tight in Australia with the extra bounce. Got to let the ball go well, make them bowl to you. Maybe too much one-day cricket where you're dropping, running, you're hitting to the sweepers straight away when you come out, and there's only maybe one slip in the middle overs, usually no slips, and running the third man's a big shot. But you got to, that's cricket, and it's been around a long time playing test match cricket, and you've got to be able to adapt. If you're a professional batter, that's what you do day in, day out, and it's just far not good enough for these guys for not to be able to consistently leave a ball outside off stump. Maybe Cummins, because he can nip it back and bowl and makes you play a bit more, possibly, but you still got to be better than that.
Agreed. A couple of questions in the chat, which are quite funny. Shane, do you reckon, and Max, would the series have been any different if Tim Payne was captain?
Interesting.
Good shout.
I think. Well, I don't think the.
Probably not.
No, I don't think the runs. I don't think the runs would have made any difference, did they? I mean, Alex Carey didn't cover himself with glory with the bat. He kept quite well. I mean, the catch he took today was phenomenal off Chris Woakes.
It was bad last Test match. Let's not forget he was a pretty poor behind the stumps last Test match. But this Test match, he was much improved. And maybe that just comes from a bit of a run in the team, right? A bit of confidence, as we were saying before. I mean, Shane, three of us. I'm like the part-time wicketkeeper. Max is a wicketkeeper, and then you're the ex-pro wicketkeeper. So we've got the different evolutions of man here.
The union as well represented.
Than mine anyway.
Yeah, there's the index finger is definitely twice the size of this index finger.
They're not great.
Carey is he's from my club in Adelaide, where our mutual friend Liam Ridley comes from. So I remember him as a 12-year-old who was in the change room. I used to give him my old gloves from time to time, and I texted him not long ago to say he's still the second best wicketkeeper from the Stingrays. But yeah, he's a great player. He went and played professional AFL football. He's a legend of a human being, and I think it's a good selection. I preferred him in the team.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think he's will take it to the next level. But Payne was good. But I like Cummins as the captain. So it was a pretty easy series for him, though. But whether the result would have been different,
I'm not sure. I think unless he's got the ability to control the weather. Anyway.
Yeah. It looks like he'll only get better, as kind of Paul's just talked about. And in the chat there, a question on the other side of the fence is and we'll do a bit of a roundup show, I think, later on in the week, but around the future of England's wicketkeepers. So if obviously got you on, Shane, like Sam Billings in this Test match came in, obviously did a Proclaimers 500 miles trip to come and play in this Test match. But where does the future lie? Does Josh Buttler get back into this side? Does Sam Billings kind of keep these gloves? Or is it time for Ben Foakes to finally get a run in this side? Because I don't think giving Johnny Bairstow the gloves is the answer. What do you think about that, Shane?
Yeah, I think you need your best keeper. And I've seen it at Foakes a little bit. He bats pretty well too. But there's always a thing when you've got 2 or 3 keepers in your team, and there's always a strange mix. I had it at South Australia because I played as an opening batter for a while, and Graham Manu kept. You're always looking over your shoulder. If I do well here, he's going to get the gloves and take over. So it's not a great balance.
Only room for one.
I think, I think Foakes, you got to look in a new direction. Billings looked okay. I've seen him play great white ball cricket. He's got a lot of energy. I haven't seen much of that, Foakes, but I think they need a new change there and bring someone fresh in who's got lots of enthusiasm. Because Buttler had no talk or enthusiasm in those early Test matches. He was just looked like he was moping around the ground the whole day.
Broken man, didn't he? I think Billings kept well from what I saw. He did a good job. And he looks like part of the team, but he was engaged and kept things lively, and that was that's an important part of things. You got to keep, especially when things are going the way they are, you got to try and keep spirits up. But
the keeper's like the drummer in the band. He keeps the rhythm and keeps everyone going and everyone around. He looks good. All the rock stars singing out in front, so gets all the groupies, but the drummer's got to be the one that just keeps things ticking along. So that's what Billings did really well. Kept the energy levels up, and I think you definitely need that as a non-negotiable for your keeper. we're usually quite annoying human beings behind the stumps. So you've got to keep that tradition going.
Takes a special kind of person, doesn't it, Ross?
Indeed.
It was obviously his dismissal was up there with the worst of them today. Just dollying it up to mid-on for no apparent reason. That was pretty poor. But I think I'm obviously going to say Ben Foakes because I'm a Surrey fan. But like he is the next cab off the rank. He is the best wicketkeeper in England, possibly in the world. Alex Stewart would say he's the best wicketkeeper in the world. He has said so before. He's definitely the best wicketkeeper in England. He did pretty well when he played against Sri Lanka. Obviously, he struggled slightly in the India series, but who didn't on those pitches? Unless you were named Rohit Sharma, you were struggling. So he was going to get a chance, wasn't he? Until he slipped in the changing room in his socks.
Unbelievable.
So I think he at least deserves a go.
What did he do? He slipped in the changing room.
He slipped in his socks in the changing room I think it was against Middlesex in the County Championship. This was just before England's home tests. Was it 2020?
Okay.
Or was it last year? I can't remember. But he was set to come in because Joss Buttler was being rested and he was going to get a good run of games. And he slipped in the changing room. I think he tore his groin or something. It was a pretty nasty one, and he was out for quite a few months. So he missed his shot that he'd worked so hard for, and he'd spent so long as well expecting not to get back into the side, just because he'd been around with the England squad so often, and not getting picked despite being England's best wicketkeeper. So that was that's
another bizarre injury. I think in one of the first T20 internationals, Brad Hodge pulled a neck muscle putting his playing shirt on. And they had to get one of the guys who was spectating, plays with WA, ran in and played in that game.
I think at that point you have to retire, don't you? If you injure yourself putting your shirt on.
Your shirt on. But falling over in the change room, I didn't know that one. That's interesting. Probably playing something in the change room anyway.
I don't know. But I think it's time for us to wrap up. We've got a couple questions on Twitter. Nice easy one for you, Max. Time for Boland and Green to throw themselves into the IPL pool for recency bias bidding.
Yeah, why not? Why not? I've not. Do they? Well, obviously they're not playing Big Bash at the moment because they're playing for Australia. I'd imagine Cameron Green would probably do a decent job. I mean, why everyone would throw their names to the IPL ring, wouldn't they? Like,
Jameson's kind of probably like if side by side in terms of comparing people. Jameson and Cameron Green, actually both giants. Jameson did terribly at the IPL, like really badly.
What they need to do is destroy India in a Test series, and that will net them a contract. Obviously, Jameson. That's why Jameson's in there.
Yeah, Marco Janssen and Rabada are going to go for big bucks in the next IPL auction, purely in the fact that they did well in the recent series against them.
Rabada should always go for big bucks.
Yeah, CSK are probably going to give Dean Elgar a pity contract like they gave to Pujara, but that's just one thing that they could do.
I think Cricket Australia shouldn't let Green go. He's got to be wrapped in cotton wool. He's an absolute gem, so I wouldn't be letting him go to the IPL if I was them. Give him bit of cash on the side and say, stay, mate. Look after yourself.
Go to the spa.
And then the other question is from NJ saying, is it safe to say now that Jadeja is the best all-rounder in the world without someone screaming Headingley?
What do you reckon, Ross?
I mean, I absolutely love Jadeja. Don't get me wrong. But again, different conditions, different players. But I think...
hard to compare.
Very good cricketer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's
great fielder, isn't he?
Yeah.
We did have a question on Patreon as well, Ross, from VJ. It was just to paraphrase, like it looked like things might be having a positive end, but it's sort of ended how it's supposed to, with England falling apart. But how much do you think the younger players in the England side learnt from this experience? I mean, I suppose that's going to be Ollie Pope. He would be I would imagine the young player. The rest of them are sort of, they've been around for a while in one form or another. But Hamid as well, I suppose. How much do you think they've learned from their experience of getting absolutely battered by everyone?
Well, it's interesting, right? So, and I hate to be the guy who turns around and brings up the 2005 Ashes, But some of the logic in the selection to the 2005 Ashes was to pick players who weren't burnt in a bad way before from Australia tours. And they didn't have the demons in their closet of kind of being just like, oh, we're really scared against these guys. And now that they've been on a pretty chastening 2 years, like this whole team, like, even some of the reserve players, right? Look at Matt Parkinson. Matt Parkinson was on tour for 18 months, pretty much non-stop. Didn't play a single game. Jack Leach's confidence probably could not be lower as an international spinner.
He's done.
You look at some of the proper younger players, as you say, like Pope, Crawley, Hamid. They either learn from this or they don't come back from this.
That's it.
And
it's up to them. It's up to them what they take from this series.
And I think Shane, you nailed it right in terms of Ollie Pope clearly wants it. Crawley clearly wants it. There is that drive, but there needs to be that ability to adapt. And if they can't adapt and they can't change what they're doing, then it's going to be a really tough thing for them. I think the really good test is going to be around what team we take to West Indies, because actually that's a big chance for England to have a look at what's gone wrong on this tour and what's gone wrong in the last 18 months and go, do we want to go forward with the same players, or do we want to do a mini reset in terms of some of these people who are around? And then the home series against South Africa, that is going to those two test series. If we don't make changes, then I think we're going to struggle for the next 5 years. Like it's not an easy fix, but we've got to start to give opportunities to different people.
Now, West Indies is a good chance to get some runs under your belt. You haven't got Stark, Cummins, Boland, Green tearing in at you, so there's a great chance for some of those guys to get some confidence in the test arena. I think for next time, if the team is playing better over the next few years, when they come to Australia with some good form, then you can put all the demons behind you. I remember hearing Steve Waugh talk about when they used to get smashed Australia in the 80s. That sort of stuck with him forever. We never want to lose again like that. And that spurred them on to work harder, train harder, plan better, etc., etc. So it's going to go either way. You're either going to go completely backwards or skyrocket up and come to take the Aussies on next time.
Well, we've been losing like this for 35 years. So if history is anything to go by, I can't see that being the takeaway from the England side. But who knows? Maybe this is the time.
Yeah, quite possibly.
You know what the conditions are going to be like in Australia. The coaches, and they've got to put their hand up and take some responsibility here, because they're picking guys who you can see were never going to perform in Australia, particularly the batters. Low hands, pushing at the ball, wanting to play outside off start. That's not how you play. So they either got to prepare earlier and practice some game plans, or pick players that you think are going to succeed. Like Crawley looks like he plays a short ball well. Gets on the front foot, takes it to the opposition, and you need a bit of that.
That's pretty interesting, as you say. I think that's really interesting. So you're obviously the lead for the Netherlands women's team. Would you ever do horses for courses selection around that? So when England go and play in the subcontinent, we're actually looking to play kind of the best 11 who are suitable to these conditions. Same with Australia, same with England, whatever. Or should it just be, do you know what? These are our best 11 players. We're going to try and play these guys in every single area.
No, I think you got properly.
Yeah, you got a horses for courses, but before you go on a tour, we're going to spinning conditions. We're going to practice a lot of spin and just constantly work on our game plans. So you get there, you know what you're going to do. And for the European teams, for example, you play in Ireland or Scotland, it's just green seamers. And that's why Ireland women's, for example, have been really good in their home conditions. When they travel to Bangladesh, to host to coach the Bangladesh women's team, we just bowled spinners at them and they struggled. Where we went to there, we would struggle as well. But you just got to plan well in advance and have a technique you think is going to survive in those conditions. And they're completely different cricket all the time. So, and if someone's really good in a certain environment, I think you've got to pick them. Yeah. It goes without saying.
Well, there we go then. It's not too late for Keaton Jennings to come back into the England team at one point or another. Shane, thank you ever so much for joining us. Max, has been an absolute pleasure as always. And thank you for everyone who's listened and watched. If you could like this video, subscribe. Shane, good use of the prop for a bit of.
It's empty, mate. It's empty.
I'll say how much is that left?
Enjoyed rubbing the salt in all the wounds. Obviously, we'll be back later on this week with some couple of other shows. But have a nice weekend.
Brilliant. Thanks, boys.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, Shane.
Bye.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.